Thank you so much for joining us online today. We so appreciate you checking out this message. We hope you enjoy it and are inspired to live more and more like Jesus Christ by His grace. If you would like to support the ministries of Rancho, you can do so at rancho.tv/giving. Set up a giving profile and a reoccurring gift. We'd sure appreciate that. Enjoy.
It's been so good.
Yes.
I have notes and ideas, and it's just been such a meaningful way to start off the year.
Yep, it's been fun, and today we're going to do a little bit of a team teaching. We've got Karissa, and you know Pastor Karissa, she runs the entire place. I mean, truly, she's the executive pastor of the church.
He's really good at executive.
It's true.
It is
Don't believe
100%
her.
true.
It's true.
Totally
it's totally true.
And then we have Tiffany Sanders, and she's our youth pastor, middle school and high school, and so there's going to be a little conversation around friendship. And because it's the subject of friendship today and kind of our life plan revolving around who we walk this with, it's good to do it in a, kind of a team format. So I love that. I've got a story to share around friendship that's a little bit outside of what I would call my comfort zone. Growing up in a little bit of a dysfunctional family, I was guarded because if I were to open myself up and really invest in certain relationships, there's probably some difficult things that were going to come my way. So I just built up kind of these walls. And that did translate to my early marriage. It translated to friendships, just being more guarded. And, there might be certain pockets of people, certain demographics of people that tend to be more guarded. And I was certainly one of those. Over time, kind of challenging myself, get out of this little bubble, get out of this protection for the sake of my marriage and for the sake of being, a parent and for the sake of friendships. And so over the years, like a lot of people, you have these pockets of friendships. Could be in your workplace, your neighborhood, your hobbies. And so I've got all these pockets of people who I would consider to be genuine friends, right? Could be acquaintances, could be good friends, but a lot of times that's not entirely tested. You don't really know the depth of your friendship until you need something. I've shared with you before, I have my oldest daughter was in the middle of the Route 91 mass shooting in Las Vegas. There's been a lot of, kind of trauma coming out of that. And 18 months ago, we were really in the thick of it. And just probably one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult times in our family life. And I took a little bit of a risk with my golfing buddies. And we spend, 4 or 5 hours a day, I wish, a week with each other. Right, exactly. 4 or 5 hours a week with each other. And we're friends. I knew we were friends. But I took a little bit of a risk and to say, hey, we are really struggling. Just with this little group of trusted people, we are really struggling. And, you go from trash talking to really listening and to really asking questions. And one of my buddies that day, I can't share a lot of details, but one of my buddies that day said, hey, listen, we're going to do something right here and right now. And it was a level of sacrifice and service toward my family that I've never experienced. And I get choked up. I could tell the story a million times. I'm going to get choked up every single time because this person ended up being a good and true friend who sacrificed a ton. And I don't know if he didn't, what that storyline might have looked like, but I know that we're better and I'm better and my family's better because of that little risk to open up to somebody who I knew was a friend, but it was tested to be true. So I'm looking forward to, how you're sharing and teaching today, and it's going to be a good time. So
yes,
thank you.
Thank you for leading the way for us.
Yeah.
That's good. We need those stories. We need to know that others are leading the way with us and for us, and that the risk is worth it at times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as we've been moving through this life plan series and just taking time to ask questions about where we are at in our lives and where we're going to, right? Like setting our eyes on something. Scott set us up with this picture of a waterfall and the idea of like that water crashing over the edge, coming down to the bottom, the noise, the intrigue it creates, right? Piques our curiosity. And we want to go that direction. We want to get to that place. And so we have asked ourselves as we set off on this journey, looking to discover something beautiful, looking to uncover things. The picture of this waterfall is that getting there is sort of this winding path, right? Climbing hills, going into valleys, going through bright areas and dark areas. This waterfall, though, acts as like a beacon, as a guide that's calling us and leading us in our life to where we're trying to get. And this beauty of this adventure, right, is that it's filled with both glorious and beautiful things, but we also know it holds some heartache along the way. And that every day that we're on the journey to that place matters. It's not just getting to the destination, it's the journey along the way. So hopefully over the last few weeks, you've been kind of thinking about this figurative waterfall in your life. What is that waterfall? What is it that in your heart and your mind you're aiming towards, that you're working towards, that you want to get to? And how are you getting there? And also then, who are you going to be along the way? And I kind of think that becomes one of the more underlying questions we have to ask ourselves. Not just where are we going, but who will we be along the way? And for many of us, as we've kind of uncovered what our waterfall is, we've noticed that relationships are central to that image, right? Yeah. Relationships of varying types of friendships. And we find that relationships shape our life in unique ways. We have the beautiful sides of relationship that fill us, that enrich us, that help us to experience joy, livelihood. It creates an awareness of being loved and belonging. And we also can experience some deep contentment, right? But we also all know that friendships can be deeply wounding and can rip our lives apart. They can leave us lonely. They can leave us feeling filled with grief or sorrow or disappointment, or maybe even experiencing some embarrassment about the way our friendships have turned out in life. And so the question is, knowing the good, bad, and the ugly of friendship, are we willing to enter into those spaces and take a risk? To take a risk to be known and to know someone else, and to see if that risk on friendship, taking that chance, will turn out to bring goodness into our life.
Yeah, is the risk going to be worth it? I mean, really, that's the question that we're all asking, whether we're aware of it or not. When we talk about being more open so that we can develop these deeper and more meaningful friendships, there's going to be a voice in our mind that goes, is it really going to be worth the risk, the potential rejection, the potential heartache, all of those pieces? And so as we consider these life plans and these pictures of these waterfalls, and we acknowledge that we're on this journey together, we're writing this story, I want us to consider what it looks like to identify and cultivate our found family. Are you familiar with what that is? I love to read. It's one of my favorite things to do. I've shared that with you before, but you may not know that I really love fiction. I mean, to just get lost in a good story is my idea of a great Friday night. I know. So in fiction, you always have a main character, right? A hero, and they have a waterfall. They have a destination, but they have challenges along the way, obstacles along the way, things that are working against them along the way as they get to the waterfall. In lots of stories, there is this concept of a found family. The main character, the hero, as they're on the journey towards the waterfall, they're facing obstacles, facing challenges. Along the way, they begin to identify their found family. These are people that come alongside them that may not have any biological, familial connection, but they decide, this is gonna be one of my people. We're gonna do life together. I wanna help you get to your waterfall, and I'm gonna be there for you, and I hope and trust that you're gonna be there for me as I am on the journey towards my waterfall. And so as we consider taking this risk together today, as we're all on this journey to our own waterfalls, you had a very specific passage of scripture that came to mind.
Yeah. So I love the second story of creation in the Bible, right? Where the author paints this really idyllic picture of the garden. It's not just that it's any garden. It's sort of this sacred space, this space where heaven and earth exist together, like a holy temple. And God is in the garden, moving among humankind, right? But we all know, just like the relationships in our life, how swiftly a friendship story can shift, how it can go from fairy tale to tragedy in a split second. You see, the woman sees the one tree, right? She sees that the tree is good for food, that the tree is a delight to the eyes, that the tree is to be desired to make one wise. And so she takes its fruit and she eats it. And being the good human she is, she shares. She shares. And within those few brief moments, all the wheels are off. They are awakened to a reality they did not know existed. They are laid bare, figuratively and literally. And as the sun drops on the horizon and the evening breeze blows in, God begins his evening stroll, taking in all the wonder of creation. But the humans, they hide behind a tree.
Sorry, I was caught up in the story. It was a really beautiful and creative way to share a passage of scripture that many of us have heard several times. And the reality is we could read and study and prayerfully consider this passage of scripture over and over and over again and never plunge the depths and the richness of what is there. You know, as we consider these creation accounts, we come to understand and hopefully to trust that God does say we are created in his image, you and I, humankind, and that is good. And that when we make mistakes, because we will, because we are humans, and that's just a part of the deal, that does not separate us from God. That when we are experiencing shame and woundedness and the consequences of our actions, that God pursues us, that God comes towards us with a desire to connect, not a desire to correct. Interesting there, right? And so, two things we want to share from you, from the scripture with you today that came up, in addition to so many other things that we've learned from this passage, that I think really speak to this idea of creating deeper and more meaningful friendships.
Yeah, so one piece of that is a longing, and the other piece is some apprehension, right? And so that longing within us for friendship, that deep desire, we want to have friends who know us as we are. And that as they know us, the more they know us, they continue to choose friendship with us, right? That they will stand with us through all the things, through our accomplishments and our failures, through our wins and our losses, through our joys and in our grief and sorrow. We want the security of a trusted friend, someone we can depend on. Because let's be honest, we all know friends are easier to find when life is going really well. But when the seas get rough, when things are uncertain, when you're facing challenges, you want a friend like Jesus, someone who says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." So a friend with us in these happy seasons, the celebration of graduations, promotions, welcoming new children into our home, retiring, becoming a grandparent, right? But also a friend that's gonna endure the hard seasons with us, our heartbreaks, unexpected tragic accidents, health struggles that we face, the departure of people that we love. I think if we're being open, if we're willing to be real and be vulnerable, we each long for friends who will see us and be with us right where we are in this particular season, in this unique, messy circumstance. And the thing is even when I say that, like maybe you're feeling this, like my heart rate starts to race a little bit. And I'm like, aw dang. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I definitely don't know if I do that with just anybody, right? We find ourselves sort of slinking behind the tree in the garden like the humans, wanting to hide a little bit. Because maybe the truth is that it feels safer or more comfortable for us to be an unknown, to be a bit of a mystery, right? Like, I'm so elusive. And the idea of actually knowing us might not be as good as the real thing. We think that when we pull back the curtain, when they see the truth about us, then they'll know I'm really just a fraud, and it's all a huge front. Maybe they'll find out about all my deep, dark secrets, because I have so many of them. Or frankly, they'll just realize I am not that interesting, and they would be better off watching paint dry than being my friend. And when these insecurities and this apprehension starts to build in us, we become like the humans in the gardens, and we pull back, whether intentionally or instinctively, and we push others away. Because this unpolished side of ourself is challenging. It's too big of an ask to share. And so I just can't, or I won't, or I don't want to do it. And I've lived in this tension before, like honestly. So I grew up in a community the better part of my life, living in the same community, going to the same school with all the same people, right? And then I married this guy, and his job started moving us around the country. And so I was faced with this reality of having to find new friends over and over and over again. And every time that I experienced this, every time we moved, every time we transitioned, this same question rose up within me. Like, am I going to risk being open with others? The longing was always there. I always wanted to connect. But in every single new setting, that apprehension always surfaced. What if I invite her to coffee and she doesn't want to go? What if she already has enough friends? Like there's like a quota for friendship, and her friendship quota has already been filled. Or what if she just doesn't want to be my friend? Because if I'm being honest, sometimes it feels safer to put somebody at a distance instead of risking the chance of feeling a bit of rejection, of feeling turned away. And so I would get stuck in this tension, right? That tension of this longing and desire to be known and seen and have a friend, pitted against this mounting apprehension that was keeping me at bay. Now, fortunately, my husband often encouraged me, and often is not even fair, always encouraged me to push past that apprehension, to choose to lean in to that desire and to seek people out, to be the one who did the ask, who went for the friend. And honestly, his encouragement to do that has been the catalyst of some of my deepest and richest and most faithful friendships that I've experienced throughout my life. People that to this day stand beside me and with me. And that's a joy.
And a gift. Good job, Chris.
Yes, good
I think
job,
there are
Chris.
some people in the room that are hoping they're like nudging their spouse. Like, who do I need to be friends with? Like, who do you choose? Help me do the work. We need people and partners like that in our lives. And so as we consider this idea that there is both longing and apprehension when we consider deeper and more meaningful friendships, what do we do with that? Well, I think to answer that question, we go back to our passage of scripture, back to our story. So we're in Genesis chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. The humans are hiding. They have decided that there's too much apprehension. We don't want God to see us. We don't want this friend God that we know to know us, to know what we've done. So we're going to try to hide it. We're feeling shame. And it picks up the story and it says, then the man and his wife heard the sound of God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And they hid from God among the trees in the garden. But God called out to them, where are you? Where are you? And I think as we identify our own longing and apprehension, whether it's in the context of friendships or other areas of life where there's longing and desire and apprehension, God continues to ask us this question with loving kindness over and over again. Where are you? Come out of hiding. I love you, I see you, I know you, where are you? And it's as we begin to respond to that question with some openness and some honesty that we can begin to understand the reality of where we are and where we are headed and how to get there. And so if you have your journals with you today, either digital or paper, you can pull those out now. We're going to have some reflection questions for you today if you'd like to consider those. We also have some available still in the back. If you need one today, you're welcome to jump up and grab one. But we want to invite you to consider, where are you right now? We're going to respond to God's question to us through the scripture today. Where are you right now as we consider building deeper friendships? As you hear Tiffany talk about longing, what were you thinking about? What were you experiencing? Is there apprehension, anxiety, fear? Maybe we name that with God and we bring that to God with some curiosity. Maybe a question of, God, help me to understand where my own apprehension is coming from. And then maybe, are there opportunities? Do you notice an invitation? Is there a friendship that comes to mind that maybe you want to consider how to go deeper in that friendship, how to build more meaning in that friendship? Is there a space where you're like, I just need to find some friends. I need to build some friends. And maybe you need to join a group with us over the next couple of weeks, or go back to the same group and invest in those friendships. Where is there maybe an opportunity? And so as we acknowledge our longing and we begin to name our apprehension, we're faced with a choice. We get to decide. This is the gift that God gives us of our own free will. No one can force us to do the work of building friendships, of opening up. I mean, people can nudge us along the way, but at the end of the day, we get to choose, will I take the risk or not? And if I want to take the risk, if I even want to consider it, how do I get from where I'm at to where I want to be, to where I'm headed, to where I sense God is inviting me? And so we have a couple of ideas and suggestions for you today. The first one is that meaningful friendships require openness. I don't know that it's possible to build deep and meaningful friendships if I stay guarded, and I have tried. That is my set point. That's how I feel the most comfortable in my life. And even after lots of years of work on openness and vulnerability and trusting others, I still don't like it. I'm just going to be open and honest with you today about that. It's not fun for me. But when we choose to come out of hiding and we open ourselves up, we're willing to share parts of ourselves that don't feel neat and tidy. Maybe they're the messier parts of ourselves, the parts of us that we're worried if people knew that they were there, that we don't always have it all together, that we don't always have the answers, that sometimes we struggle and sometimes we hurt and sometimes we doubt. We don't share those things because we're worried about what they would think. And so this week, as I took some of my own steps towards openness in some friendships, this picture came to mind. This is how I feel 11 years into this work, every time I choose to risk openness and friendship. Yep, that's Karissa. I feel like a baby fawn learning how to walk on the ice. It's awkward, I'm fumbling, my knees are bruised, I'm face planting on the ice. And then there are these moments though where there's curiosity and wonder and adventure. And then I am standing on all fours and I'm a little wobbly and I'm ooh, but I think there are parts of this that are really good. And so I share that with you because I hope that if you are feeling some of this apprehension around this, that you know that you're not alone. That's a very human response.
Yeah. And I think what can be challenging is figuring out how to move forward. How do I do this with someone else, right? And so let's consider just some like conversation starters, things that we can do to bridge into a deeper relationship with others. So we've got this list of just some different ideas, some ideas of how you can get there. One would be admitting, I don't know, right? We all have uncertainty. We all have times where we just are not feeling confident about what's going on around us or in our world or the decisions we're making. So can we open up to others and let them into that space to see how we're feeling and experiencing that? Or saying, I need help. Can we all just like take a collective moment and admit like none of us are machines or robots. We are all humans, which means we all need help. And so inviting people to embrace our humanness and holding that together and saying, hey, here's what I need to get through this thing. Can you help me with this? Or maybe letting someone know you need some feedback on something going on in your world. Or letting them know things that are important to you when you share your values or your dreams with them. Or asking this hard question, what can I do better next time? I have like a really loud, obnoxious inner critic that's always telling me what I can do better next time. So the last thing I want to do is open myself up to someone and say, hey, why don't you let me know? What could I do better? How could I have said that better? How could I have not hurt you in that situation? But the reality is that when we're in the midst of something, right? Sometimes I just can't see the forest for the trees, and I have to have that close friend speak into my life because I cannot see it. Or saying, I'm sorry, which is not a fun thing. It's always hard, but it's inevitable that we have to apologize, that we have to ask for forgiveness because we're human. And when we're letting people closer to us and we're closer to them, we're just that much more likely to end up with wounds, and definitely wounds from people who are near to us. And so we remember what Peter said. He said, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. And so saying you're sorry, admitting when you're wrong or you've messed up, because love binds and heals many wounds. Saying sorry is like the greatest act of love towards another, or one of them, among many.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of some of the moments in my own relationships that have felt the most humbling and the most open and vulnerable, it's when I am saying I'm sorry. I'm admitting that I have made a mistake or I have inadvertently caused harm, and every time.
Yeah.
And then I noticed some other phrases that you didn't pick from the list because evidently we're both considering different things to feel open. For me, it's this idea of, here's what I need. Openness in the context of friendship feels like having to say, here's what I need right now, because I don't want anybody to know that I have needs. I don't want to feel needy. I want to be the one giving and helping and supporting. It doesn't feel strong and powerful to admit that I have a need or to tell someone how I'm actually feeling. Sometimes it can feel open to just simply say, man, what you did or what you said, that means a lot to me. Even saying thank you can feel really open. The next time someone pays you a sincere compliment, I want you to just notice how that feels in the moment. We tend to want to do this.
I'm really good at that.
It just feels a certain way. And so what do we do with this?
Yeah. So the thing is, obviously, friendship is not one-sided. We can't just show up and make ourselves available to people and be open and trusting and expect that a beautiful friendship is going to blossom, right? Because friendship is reciprocal. It takes both of us. And so part of it is having to hold space for someone else to be open. Not just, can I trust you with my stuff, but can you trust me with your stuff? So am I willing to hold space when someone else chooses to risk that honesty and openness? Can I remember how God shows up in the garden looking for the humans? Can I be that kind of person to my friends who says, where are you? Where are you right now?
Yeah, I think this looks like a couple of things. The first one is learning how to be a compassionate listener. God is the first example for us of what this looks like. He comes to the humans with a question, and he's compassionately listening to their response. And this idea of compassionate listening is something that takes practice and intentionality. And it has 3 unique characteristics. The first one is kindness. So it's this idea of as I sit and I listen to your story, to your challenges, to the things that you're carrying, I have a thoughtfulness and a posture of kindness towards you. It's more obvious than we tend to think. Like if we're thinking judgmental thoughts about what the person is sharing or about who they are, or, like seriously, they should just like figure this out and get over it already. Like we think that our facial expression and our body language is not giving us away, but it's actually very much giving us away. And so we want to just ask God, would you help me to have that fruit of kindness in my thoughts towards this person and in my spirit and my attitude towards this person, because it creates a space where they are more willing to be brave and to open up. So there's kindness. There's also acknowledging our shared humanity in the moment. Like I'm not going to expect you to be perfect and have it all together and never make a mistake, because I understand that we're both human. And we have needs, and we have weaknesses. And so I'm just gonna be present with you in those moments where some of those things are rising to the surface, and not just acknowledging your humanity, but understanding my own humanity helps with that. And then the last piece is this idea of mindfulness. So as you're sharing, as you're opening up, can I quiet my own story and insecurity and inner critic and all the things that are going on to do my best to be as fully present with you as possible? And that takes practice. I got it wrong this week in the context of one of my most important friendships. And I had to circle back yesterday and apologize and just say, hey, I was not mindfully present with you when you shared this. And can I do that again? Can I do this again with you? And so it takes practice. And then the last thing that we want to share with you today is this idea of wisdom. We don't share and open up with everybody all the time, right? Like if I run into you at Target and I just kind of know your first name, but I don't know much else, it's probably not super wise for me to unload all my stuff on you in that moment, because we haven't built trust. You haven't earned some of that space in my life. And so as you're considering going deeper in these friendships and opening up a little bit more, I'd invite you to consider how many deposits have they made into your friendship? How many withdrawals have they made in your friendship? And deposits can look like investing time, extending invitations, checking back in to see how you're doing, encouraging you. We all know what deposits look like. We need enough of those, and then we begin to test the water. I'm gonna open up a little bit. I'm gonna share a story. I'm gonna let you know some of the things that are going on, and then I'm gonna notice how you respond. Is this person in a place where they can emotionally hold my story? Or are they not? And if they're not, that's okay. But I'm probably gonna allow them to be on their own journey. Can they hold what I share in confidence? Or am I concerned that they're gonna be sharing that with other people? Those are some withdrawals. And so I tend to need to do more of this. But I think one of the wisdom pieces that comes from my guardedness is I'll just test the water. I'm gonna put this out there and see how this goes. And then I might circle back and go a little deeper again. And then I might circle back and go a little deeper again after that. How many deposits have there been? Have there been some withdrawals? And there's always going to be withdrawals. That doesn't mean we keep someone at arm's distance, but we're just kind of paying attention to the fullness of it.
Yeah. So in that opening story in our Bible, that beautiful garden, God with the humans, and if not even more, especially God's persistence when the taste of fruit was still fresh on their lips. And he's asking, where are you? This is one of the most sacred stories of our scriptures because it's this moment where we see the God who created the entire universe wants to make himself known. And he wants us to be known in return, just as we are, right where we are. We see the climax of this story in the life of Jesus of Nazareth, Emmanuel, God with us. And as Jesus draws near, he befriends and he allows people to know him and to understand who he is and what he is about. But he also leans in and knows people in deep and intimate ways, that they are known where they are, and that in his knowing them, he chooses them. You see, God has taken the risk of being open. He has chosen the path of vulnerability toward us. All we have to do is read about Jesus to know that this is true. We can reflect on his life and see that his way was both downward and open, and that he stretched out his arms in love for the whole world to know him. And interestingly, Jesus' invitation was and is the same day after day. He said, "Follow me." Jesus invites us, "Follow me." Will we choose to be a friend like Jesus has been to us? Will we choose to open ourselves up in ways that draw us into deeper and more meaningful relationships with one another? Are we willing to put in the work that it takes to be a good friend to someone else? Because it's not easy. The promise is that it will be messy, that we will get scrapes and bruises and bumps along the way, but that also there is goodness, beauty, forgiveness, grace, and honestly, hopefully, a lot of laughter along the way. The worship team is going to play a song for us right now. And we just are going to invite you, just listen to the lyrics and use this time to consider for yourself, is there someone already in your life that you could move into deeper friendship with? And what would it look like for you this week to take a step towards that? Whether that's a conversation you need to have, or it's going out for coffee, or listening freely. Will you choose to take that action this week in friendship?
Things we can't live without. And and so prone to die. Faithful are the ones from friends. So give it just a little time. Share some bread and wine. Weave your heart into mine, my friend. Souls hang around. Don't be shy. There's nothing left to hide. Come on, let's talk a while. Of the places we left behind, no longer yours and mine. Build a good thing here too. So give it just a little time.